She drained our accounts, took the kids, and left me for a man who couldn't even look me in the eye. They thought I'd disappear quietly. The betrayal turned into a war, and I didn't just fight back. I destroyed every lie they built. If you think revenge isn't satisfying, wait till you hear how I turned rock bottom into her worst nightmare. Part 1. I still remember the moment I knew my wife, Alyssa, was cheating on me. It wasn't dramatic, no lipstick on my collar, no strange perfume lingering on her clothes. Just a phone, vibrating at dawn, and the sheer panic that flashed in her eyes when she saw I was awake. We'd been together for 12 years. 12 long years. We built everything from the ground up, 2 kids, countless holidays, a beat-up dining table from our first apartment that we swore we'd never replace because it held our memories. I thought it was love. But that one morning, she looked like a criminal caught in the act. Her hands were tight around her phone like it was the last secret she had left to protect. Her shoulders stiff, her breath shallow. I could have asked her what was wrong. I could have demanded answers. But after working a 14-hour shift on a roofing job overnight, I didn't have the strength to scream. Instead, I watched in silence. And something inside me, a quiet, bitter voice, told me, get proof first. Don't confront, watch, wait, and then destroy her. At first, it felt like paranoia. She would sneak off into the pantry, whispering, smiling softly. It's just Jordan, she said, her brother. But I knew better. The grin wasn't for family. I knew that grin once. It used to be mine. I started digging, quietly, like a man preparing for a war nobody knew was coming. Bank statements, restaurant bills from fancy spots I never saw, men's cologne charges, designer shirts that never hung in my closet. It all started adding up. And while I worked my fingers to the bone to give our kids, Haley, 10, and Zane, 8, a decent life, Alyssa was burning it all behind my back. I blamed myself at first. Maybe I worked too much. Maybe in trying to provide, I became invisible to her. But deep down, I knew she'd already left me emotionally. She just hadn't packed her bags yet. I used to trust her brother, Jordan. He always had an opinion, always running his mouth about how I was just a blue-collar grunt. He'd show up in flashy suits, bragging about business deals that never existed, driving a leased BMW like it made him royalty. Alyssa thought he walked on water. I knew he was poison. Around 4 months ago, she started spending more time with him, weekly bonding nights. But the receipts didn't match her lies. Phone records showed another man, Nathan Boyd, her coworker, an accountant, the kind of guy who wears polished shoes and smells like power. My jaw clenched whenever I heard his name. Then came the day everything shattered. I was on my way to buy materials for a renovation job. I swiped my card, declined. I tried another, same result. Confused, I called the bank. What I heard made my knees go weak. Our accounts were empty. Even the college fund I had quietly built up for Haley and Zane, gone. Everything, drained. My heart thundered as I sped home, my hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel. I knew what I'd find. I just didn't expect to see it happen so boldly. Jordan was in my driveway, smug as ever. Alyssa was barking orders into her phone while movers carried boxes, furniture, and even the kids' books out of our house. Our home, my home. She looked at me with eyes colder than winter. You're a failure, she spat. I'm taking the kids and the money. I deserve better than a broke construction worker. Jordan tossed a box of Haley's drawings into the trunk of his car like it was trash. You're done, man, he smirked. Sabrina's, sorry, Alyssa's, finally moving on from your sorry life. You lay one finger on her or the kids, and we'll have you arrested. Something inside me snapped. My vision blurred. All I could see were flashes. Alyssa laughing while texting Nathan, her face glowing the way it used to glow for me. Her hands in mine on our wedding day. Me, holding our babies, while she whispered she couldn't have done this without me. It was all a lie. You want a show? I muttered under my breath. Fine. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. Instead, I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. I hit record. The red light blinked to life. Jordan's face twitched. What the hell are you doing? He growled, stepping forward. Stop filming, idiot. But I didn't. I held it steady as he opened his car and pulled out a baseball bat. Who the hell keeps a bat in a luxury car? You want drama? He sneered, raising the bat. Here's your drama. Crash. The bat smashed into the headlight of my truck. Glass exploded. Then another blow to the side. A deep dent formed, screeching like a wound. He kept swinging, angry, erratic, savage. I kept filming. That's thousands of dollars in damage now, I said clearly, loud enough for the phone mic to catch. Keep going, Jordan. This is all evidence now. Alyssa's eyes widened in panic. Jordan, stop it. He's filming you, you idiot. He froze, dropped the bat like it burned his hands. His lips curled, but the smugness was gone. I calmly stopped recording. That should be enough for now, I said. Alyssa, enjoy the mess you've created. Then I turned, walked inside without another word. I didn't rush. I gathered every important document I had stashed away, birth certificates, my business records, IDs. I hid them someplace safe. And when I walked back out, Alyssa was still yelling, trying to provoke me. I didn't answer. I got into my battered truck, turned the key, and drove away. Her voice faded behind me like smoke. That night, I stayed at a rundown motel by the interstate. The wallpaper peeled, the air reeked of cigarettes and mildew, and the neon sign outside flickered like a dying heart. I sat on the edge of the creaky bed and stared at the ceiling. Alyssa gutted our life like it was nothing. And for what? A polished stranger in a suit? But I wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. I started making calls. I had a few favors left, old friends who still believed in loyalty. Alyssa had drained almost everything, but my personal business accounts were protected. She had tried to touch them, but failed. Enough remained to keep me breathing. Then, a few days later, I found out something that lit a match in my chest. Alyssa wasn't just cheating. She was planning to move in with Nathan, possibly marry him. Word was, he was already bragging to coworkers that Alyssa had finally left her caveman husband. They thought I was finished. A joke, a broken man crawling into a bottle. They were wrong. I kept my head low, pretended to be defeated. I moved into a tiny apartment near Haley and Zane's new school. I drove the same battered truck with the bashed in front, acting like a man with nothing left. When Alyssa called to gloat, I let her. When she threatened to fight for full custody, I acted scared. I pretended to beg. All the while, I recorded her cruel words. It was all building towards something bigger. From a mutual acquaintance, I learned Nathan's schedule. He left work around 5:30 p.m. every day and drove to an upscale gym. Sometimes, Alyssa met him there. Other times, they'd go straight to his place. That's all I needed. One evening, my phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated, then picked up. Dad, a tiny, trembling voice whispered. My heart stopped. Haley? I choked. I miss you, she whimpered. Mom said I can't call anymore. Uncle Jordan says. Click. The line went dead. I sat frozen, staring at the screen. My own daughter, cut off from me, used like a pawn. That was it. They wanted a war. They'd get one. I called Mason Tate, a childhood friend with fists like bricks and a loyalty forged in blood. Years ago, I saved him from a legal mess. Now, he owed me. Mason's cousin worked construction too, ran crews across the county. Heavy machinery. No questions asked. When Mason heard what Alyssa and Jordan had done, when he realized they'd ripped apart my family and tried to erase me from my children's lives, his voice was like gravel. Tell me when. I've got your back. Let's make them bleed. Slow. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about justice. And I was ready to burn everything to the ground for my kids. Part 2. Jordan Wells was doing everything in his power to erase me from my children's lives. He wasn't just humiliating me, he was helping Alyssa drain our accounts, poison my kids against me, and push me out like I was some stranger on the street. When I told Mason Tate everything, his response was just one sentence. When do we start? I laid out the plan as it formed in my head. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't clever, but it would send a message, a loud, undeniable message that I was not a man to be tossed aside. The next night, we met near an abandoned lot on the edge of town. The moon hung low in the sky, casting silver shadows through a broken chain-link fence. Inside, old construction machinery sat idle like sleeping beasts. Mason's cousin, a foreman who owed him a favor, was already there, looking the other way. There it was, what we needed, a rust-covered, diesel-breathing bulldozer. It let out a deep, monstrous growl when Mason turned the key. My pulse pounded in my ears like war drums. But we weren't ready yet. I needed Nathan Boyd alone. No Alyssa, no kids, no witnesses. So I waited. For days, I watched him. I studied his patterns like a hunter tracking prey. Nathan always left work around the same time. Clean-cut, polished, like betrayal wrapped in a silk tie. He'd drive away in his spotless silver sedan, completely unaware that someone was watching. Finally, on a Friday evening, everything lined up. Nathan left the office like usual. I tailed him from a safe distance, never letting him know I was behind him. He turned onto a quiet road under a half-finished overpass. That's when my phone lit up with a text from Mason. In position. Perfect. Nathan slowed at a red light that looked like it hadn't changed in hours. I pressed my foot to the gas and cut in front of him, my battered truck groaning as if it knew what was coming. Nathan slammed on his brakes. What the hell? I heard him yell as I jumped out of my truck. He recognized me instantly. You're out of your mind, he shouted, his eyes darting around. Get out of the way. I'm calling the cops. Go ahead, I said, stepping forward and pulling a small baseball bat from behind my back. I'll be done before they show up. That's when Mason made his entrance. The bulldozer roared from behind like a monster woken from sleep. Its engine growled as Mason expertly steered it closer, the massive shovel blade aimed straight at the trunk of Nathan's car. Nathan's eyes widened in terror. No, 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 no. The metal groaned on the first hit. The blade crunched the trunk like paper, tearing through steel. Nathan scrambled to unbuckle his seatbelt and tumbled out of the car, hitting the pavement and rolling to his feet. He turned to face us, hands raised as if that would stop what was coming. You can't do this. You're crazy. I walked right up to him and grabbed his shirt collar. You feel that? I hissed, my voice calm but burning with rage. That's what it feels like when someone tears apart everything you built. Let go of me, he begged, struggling against my grip. But I wasn't done. Not after everything he helped Alyssa do. The bulldozer revved again, louder this time. Mason tilted the blade to the side and rammed into the car's door. Glass shattered like ice. The shriek of twisting metal echoed through the night. Nathan flinched, trembling. Please, stop. This is insane. You proud of yourself? I growled. You got Alyssa. You stole my money. You think you won? She said you were abusive, he gasped. She said you were a violent loser. I didn't know. I let out a dry, bitter laugh. You didn't know? I slammed him against my truck. You let her take our children's college savings. You helped her hide them from me. And you call this not personal? He threw a weak punch that landed on my shoulder. I didn't flinch. Fueled by every sleepless night, every silent cry from Haley, every insult Alyssa had hurled at me, I swung the bat. It landed against his ribs with a crack. Nathan collapsed, groaning, clutching his side. I leaned down close, my breath hot on his ear. I don't want your money, I whispered. I want this moment to haunt you for the rest of your life. Mason moved the bulldozer again. The blade crushed the back of Nathan's car. The frame gave in like foil, and the wheels bent like twisted limbs. Screams of steel echoed under the overpass. I grabbed Nathan and shoved him to the ground. He hit hard, groaning in pain as he tried to crawl away from the mangled remains of his perfect car. For a moment, I wanted to go further, to ruin more than just his vehicle, but I stopped myself. Sometimes, fear leaves a deeper scar than broken bones. Mason backed the bulldozer away, leaving behind a heap of twisted, smoking metal. He jumped down, nodded to me, and we walked away. Behind us, Nathan whimpered in the glow of the streetlights. Sirens howled in the distance, growing louder. But by the time they arrived, we were ghosts, already swallowed by the night. When word finally reached Alyssa, it hit her like a slap across the face. The rumor mill churned. Someone said a bulldozer appeared out of nowhere and crushed Nathan's car. Nobody knew who was behind it, but Alyssa did. She just couldn't prove it. The next morning, my phone rang. Her name lit up the screen. I answered. You lunatic, she spat, voice cold as steel. You're not getting away with this. Nathan is pressing charges. The police are coming for you. I let out a calm breath. I have no idea what you're talking about. I was home all night. You think I'm stupid? She hissed. You crossed a line. My lawyer is going to tear you apart. I clenched my jaw, picturing her pacing her new condo like a rattlesnake coiled too tight. No, Alyssa, I said. You crossed the line the moment you stole from our kids. The day you used them as weapons. You're pathetic, she barked. I should have left you years ago. You're still the same failure. Click. She hung up. I stared at the screen, heart pounding. A strange mix of fear and satisfaction settled over me. I knew there would be consequences, but in that moment, I didn't care. Not yet. The knock came 3 days later. A detective at my door. Calm, but direct. You wouldn't happen to know anything about a bulldozer incident out on Route 7, would you? I smiled. No clue, officer. I was home all night. He glanced around. Funny. Your truck looks a little roughed up. Yeah, hit a deer last week. My neighbors vouched for me. Some even claimed they saw me take the trash out around 9. My license plates had been covered in duct tape that night. Mason's cousin had wiped down the bulldozer clean. No prints, no footage, no case. The detective left with more questions than answers. But I wasn't done. I filed for an emergency custody hearing. In court, I presented everything. Bank records proving Alyssa emptied our savings, videos of Jordan smashing my truck, phone recordings of Alyssa mocking me, and even messages showing she blocked me from seeing Haley and Zane. Her lawyer tried to spin the story. He's abusive, Your Honor. She was protecting her children. But my attorney, Diane Fields, slid the final blow across the table. A letter from Haley's teacher. Haley has expressed sadness and confusion about not seeing her father. She says, Mommy won't let me see Daddy. The judge leaned back in his chair and exhaled. He couldn't confirm who crushed Nathan's car, but he knew one thing: Alyssa was hiding something. By the end of the hearing, I had partial custody. From nothing to something. When we left the courtroom, Alyssa stormed up to me. "This isn't over," she growled through gritted teeth. "You'll regret every minute of this." I looked her straight in the eyes. "You started this war. I'm just making sure I survive it." Later that week, Haley and Zane came to stay with me. I didn't mention the fight, or Nathan, or the wreckage of our broken home. I just took them to the park, taught them how to change a light bulb, watched Haley score her first goal in soccer. They were the only thing that still felt real. And for them, I would keep fighting. Part 3. I tried to rebuild some sense of peace. I took Haley and Zane to the local parks, just like we used to. Haley played soccer in the evenings. I never missed a practice. Zane was obsessed with his dinosaur Lego robot. We spent hours building it together, carefully clicking every block into place until it roared like it belonged in Jurassic Park. I wanted to give them normalcy, something stable, something safe. But Alyssa wasn't done yet, not even close. She threw loud parties in her new condo, sipping expensive wine she bought with the money she scraped out of our joint accounts. Laughter spilled from her balcony at all hours. She moved like she was untouchable, like the court, the law, and decency had no power over her. But the tide had already turned. The judge had seen through her lies. And word on the street: Nathan Boyd, her polished little rebound, was halfway out the door. Since the bulldozer incident, the man had become a jittery mess. He wasn't built for the kind of chaos Alyssa brought into people's lives. Still, she refused to see the writing on the wall. She thought if she pushed hard enough, I'd break, I'd bend, I'd crawl. She had no idea who she was dealing with. Then, one afternoon, her brother Jordan showed up at my job site. I was installing custom cabinetry in a nearly finished home. Just another day trying to rebuild what I'd lost. Then he strolled in like he owned the place, sunglasses on, like he was hiding a bruise under his eye. Someone must have taught him a lesson recently. He walked around, smirking, tapping on the cabinets I'd built with my bare hands. "Cheap wood," he said loudly. "If you're gonna sabotage my sister's life, at least do it with something decent." I exhaled, wiped the sweat off my hands, and turned slowly to face him. "You shouldn't be here." Jordan stepped forward until we were nearly nose to nose. "You think I'm gonna just sit back while you drag Alyssa's name through the mud? Humiliate her? Humiliate me?" From the corner of my eye, I spotted Jake Monroe, one of my co-workers, peeking from the next room. I gave him a small nod. It was fine. I had this under control. "You're the one who smashed my truck," I said calmly. "And I still have the video." Jordan shrugged, that greasy grin plastered on his face. "You think that matters? I've got enough dirt to bury you before you ever reach the courthouse." I couldn't help but laugh. "Right. Because your last business venture, what was it? A luxury vape lounge that never opened? That's real power right there." His face twisted, and he shoved me hard in the chest. But I didn't move. "I've spent years hauling wood, lifting concrete blocks, working in heat that makes most men fold." Jordan had the build of someone who had never done a real day's labor in his life. He was nothing to me. "Stay away from my sister," he growled. "She's going to take everything. You'll end up crying in some ditch." I let out a low chuckle, the sound echoing off the unfinished drywall. "Let her try. Neither of you have the faintest idea what's coming." His jaw clenched, but he backed off. "This isn't over," he spat, just like Alyssa had. "You'll regret ever crossing us." Then he stormed out, slamming the door so hard it rattled the hinges. Jake came out, eyes wide. "That was Alyssa's brother?" I nodded. "Yeah, harmless. Mostly." "Hot air didn't feel harmless," Jake muttered. He wasn't wrong. Jordan always showed up when you least wanted him, barking threats like it was the only language he knew. But something had shifted inside me. That coil of anger, of vengeance, it was winding tighter. It wasn't time yet, but it would be, and when it was, I'd make sure neither of them forgot it. 2 weeks later, more legal nonsense. Alyssa tried to block me from seeing Haley and Zane again, claimed I was unstable. When I showed up to the local precinct with the custody agreement in hand, the officer looked it over and told me I had every right to pick them up that night. So I did. I went to her condo like I was supposed to. She opened the door just a crack, her eyes cold and sharp behind the chain. "Go away," she snapped. "My kids are scheduled to be with me tonight," I said, keeping my tone even. But inside, the rage was spinning like a storm. "They don't want to see you." I raised an eyebrow, trying to look past her. I heard soft footsteps inside. "Haley, maybe Zane. You're alienating them again." She ignored me, leaned closer until her face almost pressed against the gap in the door. "You think you're clever with your little tough guy stunts? Everyone knows you wrecked Nathan's car. They're just waiting for the proof. I didn't respond to that, just sighed. Sabrina, open the door. Make me. Then her phone rang. She glanced down to check the caller. That was all I needed. I slammed the door open. The chain snapped. She stumbled back, gasping. The smell of stale wine and takeout hit me like a slap. Half-empty bottles littered the floor. Dirty clothes everywhere. But my kids were nowhere to be seen. Where are Haley and Zane? I demanded. She pointed toward the bedroom door. You'll regret this. Breaking into my condo. I stepped past her. Kids, I called out gently, it's Dad. Zane poked his head out first, his eyes wide. Then Haley, her face pale, her voice soft. Mom said we can't go with you anymore, she whispered. She said, you were violent. But you're not. You're not, right? Something in me broke. But I stayed strong for them. I turned to Alyssa. Pack your bags, kids. You're coming with me. No, she snapped. They're not. I forbid it. We have a court order, I said, voice like iron. Call the cops if you want. Let's see what they say when they walk in and see this mess. I gestured around the room, the bottles, the trash, the chaos. Go ahead, make the call. Her rage simmered, but she didn't dial. She just stood there, frozen, as the kids gathered their favorite toys and clothes and stuffed them into their backpacks. When they were ready, I took their hands. She followed us to the hallway, screaming and cursing. I didn't look back. I just shut the door in her face. A few nights later, Haley and Zane asleep in their beds, I got another call from Mason. Jordan's planning something, he warned. Said he's gonna catch you on your way to that late-night job. Wants to teach you a lesson. My heart thumped in my chest. So be it. I arranged for a trusted friend to watch the kids and took off in my old truck. Sure enough, around 9 p.m., I saw the familiar headlights behind me, Jordan's flashy BMW, tailing me just like I expected. I smiled. It was time. I turned onto a dark stretch of road near the scrapyard. The air was thick with tension. The outline of a backhoe loomed under a flickering street lamp. I stopped the truck and stepped out. Jordan's car screeched to a halt behind me. He got out, bat in hand, just like the day he'd smashed my headlights. Two more guys stepped out from the back, thugs, hired muscle, or just stupid friends. He slammed the bat into his palm. Took you long enough to stop, he sneered. Time to finish this. I couldn't agree more, I said quietly. Mason stepped out from the shadows, calm as ever. No weapon, just fists like bricks. Jordan's goons shifted nervously. He smirked. Oh, so you brought backup? That's cute. Let's see what he can do. I took a step forward. You and your sister stole from me. Tried to take my kids. You think I'd just disappear? He laughed. Boo-hoo. We took what we deserve. You're a loser. You'll always be a loser. I let it sit for a moment, then walked to the back of my truck and pulled out a crowbar. I'm no saint, I said, but I'm not weak, and you're about to learn why that was your biggest mistake. His smirk faltered. He raised the bat. One of his guys lunged with a metal pipe, but Mason met him halfway, fist slamming into his face. The thug crumpled. The second guy rushed me. I swung the crowbar and caught him in the ribs. He dropped to his knees, wheezing. Jordan froze. And for the first time, I saw something real behind those sunglasses. Fear. Part 4. I raised the crowbar high and slammed it into the thug's ribs. He yelped, stumbling back, gasping for air. Then Jordan Wells, the man who destroyed my family with a grin, came charging in, his bat swinging wild. It sliced past my arm, grazing hard. Pain exploded through my shoulder, but adrenaline drowned it. I barely flinched. I turned sharply and swung the crowbar straight at his wrist. There was a sharp crack, followed by his howl of pain. The bat tumbled from his hand. Behind me, Mason Tate had the other two cornered. Those goons Jordan always dragged around like flies buzzing on garbage. Mason moved like a machine, each punch deliberate, each takedown final. He wasn't just helping me, he was making a statement. Jordan stumbled backward, cursing, face twisted in pain. I didn't let him go far. I grabbed him by the collar, yanking him close, my voice shaking from the storm raging inside me. You think you're tough, huh? Swinging that bat at my truck like you're invincible? Let's see how tough you are now, without a weapon. He tried to jab me in the stomach, but I was ready. I brought the crowbar down hard on his thigh. He screamed, loud and broken, and crumpled to one knee. Sweat rolled down his face. But still, he glared up at me, hate burning like acid in his eyes. You'll pay for this, he hissed, spitting near my boots. I stared at him, my chest heaving. I already have, I growled. Thanks to you and Alyssa. Then I reeled back and punched him once, hard and final. His jaw snapped sideways, and he collapsed onto the asphalt. Mason stepped up behind me, looming over the two thugs he'd flattened. They were groaning, trying to crawl away from the wreck they walked into. Once they saw Jordan down, they scrambled. One of them limped to the BMW, panicked and bleeding. The other followed, dragging his arm like it barely worked anymore. They sped off into the night, tires screeching, leaving Jordan behind, broken and breathless. For a moment, I stood there, watching Jordan writhe. I could have left it at that, could have walked away and felt justified, but something darker stirred in my gut, a bitter ache that demanded more. I strode to his BMW, popped the trunk, and found a small tool kit tucked in the corner, probably for show or intimidation. Inside was a reciprocating saw. Fitting. How poetic. I yanked it free and held it up. Mason met my eyes and gave a single, solemn nod. Do it. I ignited the saw. The blade screamed to life. Sparks flew as I plunged it into the side of Jordan's precious luxury car. The shriek of ripping metal filled the air, sharper than any scream Jordan had made. Paint blistered, steel tore like paper. I carved into that car with every ounce of rage I'd held back for over a year. When I stepped back, the side of the BMW looked like it had survived a war. Jordan, bruised and bleeding, watched in horror from the pavement. Stop, please. Stop, he begged. I turned the saw off, its whining replaced by the buzz of silence. I stared down at him, my voice low and cold. Next time, I won't stop with the car. His eyes filled with something new, real fear. Mason tossed the bent metal pipe he'd confiscated from one of the thugs. It clanged loudly. Then he looked at me. Let's go. We got in my truck and drove off. In the rearview mirror, I saw Jordan on his hands and knees, slumped beside the ruined shell of his car. He wouldn't be running his mouth for a long time, if ever. Of course, when Alyssa found out, she tried to flip the story. Told anyone who'd listen that I was a violent lunatic who destroyed poor Jordan's car. But reality was no longer bending in her favor. Jordan was in the hospital with a fractured wrist and a face swollen like a punching bag. Plus, I had earlier footage of him smashing my truck with a bat. The cops called it a mutual escalation. No one was innocent. But no one was innocent for a long time now. My lawyer, Diane Fields, was already tightening the noose around Alyssa's manipulations. She was done lying to the court about the money, the kids, the threats. The judge had seen enough. Every time she tried to cast me as the villain, we countered with receipts, video, bank statements, and testimonies. The day we finalized the divorce felt almost silent. No fireworks, no drama, just a courtroom, a few signatures, and the end of 12 years. Alyssa showed up late, in a wrinkled blouse and no makeup. Her hair was tied back in a rush, and dark circles carved into her face. Gone was the confident woman who mocked me on the driveway. All that remained was bitterness wrapped in tired skin. She tried to meet my eyes. There was defiance, but also something else. Defeat. I leaned slightly toward her and said just loud enough for her to hear. We could have worked this out, if you hadn't tried to take everything. She let out a dry, bitter laugh. You deserved it. You're nothing. A nobody. I shrugged. Maybe, but at least I'm not the one who lost everything. Her lip curled like she was about to spit venom. But before she could speak again, the judge raised a hand and read the final terms. I got primary custody of Haley and Zane. Alyssa had supervised visitation only. The judge ruled that all my personal business accounts were mine, and everything she had drained was to be reimbursed. She was stuck with the debt from the credit cards she opened under my name, now proven to be fraud. The court added it to her tab. And child support? That was the part that really broke her pride. The moment the judge said, "The marriage is dissolved. Financial ties are limited to court-ordered obligations only," I saw Alyssa flinch. But she didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stared straight ahead, lips pressed together, jaw tight. When the hearing ended, I stepped out of that courthouse with something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. I took Haley and Zane to the diner nearby. We sat in a booth, sipping vanilla milkshakes under flickering neon lights. My arm still throbbed where Jordan's bat had landed. My truck was still beaten and dented. My bank accounts weren't anywhere near healthy. But I had something worth more than money. A second chance. Haley leaned her head on my shoulder as she sipped her milkshake. "Are you happy, Dad?" she asked, her voice soft. I paused. Happy felt like too much. I wasn't there yet. "I'm okay," I said finally, brushing her hair back. "And I'll be even better soon." Zane looked up from his spoon. "Mom said you're a bad guy," he said quietly. A lump formed in my throat. "Sometimes, people do bad things when they're hurt," I said. "I'm not perfect, buddy. But everything I did, was to protect you." Haley reached across the table and rested her small hand on mine. "We know," she whispered. In that moment, all the rage, all the plans for revenge, they quieted. Their tiny hands anchored me to what mattered. They reminded me who I was fighting for all along. In the months that followed, Jordan's threats dried up like puddles in the sun. Nathan Boyd, humiliated by the whole bulldozer incident, moved out of state for a fresh start. Alyssa had to downsize to a tiny apartment and take a boring desk job she loathed. The whispers that once painted me as as the failure. The blue-collar guy who got dumped for someone better changed. People started piecing together the truth. Some even apologized. Most just disappeared, a shame. I didn't care either way. Their opinions never really mattered. The last time I spoke to Alyssa was outside the courthouse. The divorce was done. Everything finalized. She stood on the steps, glaring at me like I'd taken her future away. "You'll never amount to anything," she spat. I took a deep breath, calm and steady. "Maybe," I said, "but at least I'm not stuck chasing cheap thrills. At least I'm no longer tethered to someone who'd burn her own family for control." She looked like she might slap me, or scream, but instead, she turned and walked away. That was it. No dramatic goodbye. No apology. Just two strangers who once built a life, now torn apart by betrayal, greed, and pride. I stood there a while, watching her disappear through the doors. Then I went home to my kids. She may have thought she won, but in the end, I walked away with what mattered most. Dear listeners, this is where our story ends. If it moved you, made you angry, made you feel anything at all, leave a comment, share your thoughts, and don't forget to like, share, and follow. Thank you for listening. Until next time.